For decades, China was the engine of the global economy, right? It was the story of just unstoppable growth that turned it from a pretty poor agricultural country into an industrial giant. But that engine is starting to sputter. The era of that explosive, seemingly endless growth, it's hit a wall. And we're going to break down why this is all happening now, and maybe more importantly, what it means for the rest of us. I mean, for years, we all just got used to China posting these incredible growth numbers, over 8%, sometimes even double digits. That was just normal. But today, the country is struggling to even clear half of that. And this isn't just some temporary blip. It feels like a fundamental downshift for the world's second largest economy. It really signals a huge change in the global order. So what exactly is going on behind this dramatic fall? All right, to really understand what's happening, we need to look for the cracks in the foundation. Think of it like a diagnosis. You've got this once unstoppable economic athlete that's now showing some really serious signs of strain, and we're about to pinpoint exactly where those problems are. Okay, the most visible, the most immediate, and honestly, the most critical issue, the very heart of the crisis, is the property sector. For years, this was the supercharged rocket fuel for China's growth, but now it's the epicenter of its biggest financial earthquake. And to really get your head around just how massive this problem is, check this out. The property sector and all the industries connected to it, we're talking construction, materials, you name it, they account for a staggering 25 to 30% of China's entire GDP. I mean, think about that. A quarter to nearly a third of the whole economy is tied to building and selling apartments. When a sector that huge gets into trouble, it threatens to pull everything else down right along with it. And the fallout is already really severe. Real estate sales are just plummeting, and private investment is drying up because, well, confidence has evaporated. This has kicked off widespread fears of financial instability, with these giant, once invincible companies like Evergrande teetering on the brink of total insolvency. These aren't just abstract economic trends. We're talking about corporate behemoths that could actually collapse. But here's where the story gets a lot more complex. As dramatic as this whole property crisis is, it's really just a symptom. It's the high fever that tells you there's a much deeper, more chronic illness inside the Chinese economic model. To really understand the prognosis, we have to look at these underlying conditions. And right away, we find a dramatic reversal. For decades, China's greatest asset was what economists call its demographic dividend, this huge, young, and growing workforce that powered its factories and built its cities. But the legacy of the one-child policy has completely flipped that advantage on its head. China is now facing a rapidly aging population and a shrinking workforce, which puts enormous pressure on its labor market and its entire social safety net. And that demographic cliff isn't the only long-term challenge, not by a long shot. For one, China's own consumers don't spend enough. People save a lot, which means internal consumption is just too weak to pick up the economic slack. At the same time, the old playbook of just being the world's low-cost factory has pretty much run its course as wages have gone up. Then, you throw in rising trade tensions, especially with the United States, and it becomes a whole lot harder to just export your way to growth. So this might all seem like a problem that's happening far away, but a crisis in China never just stays in China. As the world's #2 economy and the central hub of global trade, its problems are going to create ripple effects that reach every single corner of the globe. And this is the part where we explain why it matters directly to you. So the big question becomes, is China's economic flu contagious? And the simple answer is yes, absolutely. But the real question is how that contagion spreads from Beijing to the rest of the world. It happens in three main ways. First, China is just a monster consumer of raw materials. So when its construction and manufacturing slow down, countries that export all those commodities, think Brazil, Australia, and nations all across Africa, they feel the pain almost immediately. Second, it messes with global supply chains for pretty much everything we buy, from our phones to our cars. And third, all this uncertainty just spooks international financial markets, making investors everywhere a lot more cautious and less willing to take risks. All of this brings us to the final crucial question. What's the prognosis? Facing this perfect storm of challenges, China now stands at a really critical crossroads. The path it decides to take next won't just define its own future. It's going to have huge implications for the entire global economic landscape. At this point, little fixes or stimulus packages, they're just not going to cut it. The challenge facing China's leadership is nothing less than a complete reinvention of the economic model that delivered that miraculous growth for over 40 years. It's like they have to build a brand new engine while the old one is still in flight. So what would that reinvention even look like? Well, experts point to a potential three-step path. First, pivot the entire economy away from relying on exports and investment, and really focus on boosting its own internal consumption. Get people spending. Second, race up the value chain to become a true leader in high-tech sectors like AI and green energy. And third, and this is a big one, implement deep reforms to create more market transparency and win back the confidence of foreign investors. Which leaves us with this final massive question. Can China truly make this pivot? Can it really transform itself from the world's factory built on cheap labor and exports into a sustainable, innovative powerhouse driven by technology and its own consumers? The answer to that question is, without a doubt, going to shape the 21st century.